Hi, welcome to the course ChatGPT for Programmers. In this course, you will learn how to revolutionize your programming experience with the power of ChatGPT. Whether you're a beginner or an experienced programmer, this course has something for everyone. So in this video, I want to give you an introduction to the course content. So let's start with section 1, which is this current section. In this section, I'll give you an introduction to ChatGPT. Then in section 2, we'll explore how to use ChatGPT to build programs from scratch. You'll learn how to query ChatGPT to build programs for you and discover some exciting examples of what's possible. Now, we will query ChatGPT to write Python programs for us, but if you want to use another language, you can do that. In section 3, we will focus on ChatGPT to fix existing programs. You'll learn how to quickly and easily fix coding bugs using the advanced language processing capabilities of ChatGPT. In section 4, we'll look at how to use ChatGPT to improve existing programs. From adding new features to making codes more efficient, you'll learn how to make the most of your programs with ChatGPT. Section 5, we will dive deeper into existing uses of ChatGPT in the programming field, from writing documentation to learning new programming languages, and even landing your dream job. You'll discover the many possibilities of ChatGPT. Section 6 will be a bonus where I'll show you how to use the ChatGPT API so that you can make your own programs which make other programs, etc. So if you're ready to take your programming efficiency to a new level, join me and let's start building apps with ChatGPT. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks. Hey, welcome back. In this video, I'll give you an introduction to ChatGPT. So please go to chat.openai.com. That is the website to access ChatGPT. If you don't have an account, go to sign up. Otherwise, you should be able to log in. So create an account, log in, and you should see the interface of the ChatGPT web app. So what is ChatGPT? Well, that would be an unsmart question to ask to a human in the ChatGPT area, so you can just ask ChatGPT itself any questions and you get answers for everything. So ChatGPT is an artificial intelligence language model developed by the OpenAI organization. And it generates human-like text, which is not exactly true because it does more than that. It can create vector images as well. That's one of the secrets I'll show to you in this course, along other secrets of ChatGPT in the field of programming, but also in the general field. So ChatGPT gives you text-based answers based on your questions. And it does so in a conversational manner, meaning if I ask a follow-up question on my previous discussion with ChatGPT, ChatGPT will follow up on the conversation we have had so far. So it is aware of what's being discussed previously in the conversation. And ChatGPT stands for Chat Generative Pre-trained Transformer. So there's a huge amount of text that has been used to pre-train the model. And then we access the answers generated by that model through this web app. So the web app is accessed through chat.openai.com. Now, it is advised to keep conversations categorized in chats. For example, if you're asking questions about what ChatGPT is, you can continue writing on this thread here, on this chat. But if you want to open another topic, then you'd better create a new chat. So, for example, if you wanted to talk about weather, you can start talking here about weather. That would be more efficient and you might get more accurate answers when you keep conversations in separate chats. For example, So you could have asked that question also in this other chat, but as I said, it keeps things more organized and you get more accurate results if you work on separate chats for separate topics you want to discuss. Now, one secret that I would really like to share with you right now is that when you talk to ChatGPT, consider like you're talking to a real human. Like, for example, if you're asking for help in programming, think as you are talking to a real, very experienced programmer who is always happy to help you. And so by keeping that in mind, you write the queries that a human would understand. And if a human understands your queries, ChatGPT will do it too. The benefit with ChatGPT is that ChatGPT has immense knowledge about everything. You can ask for help from an experienced programmer, but there's always something that that experienced programmer will not know, or they might miss a point on what you're asking and so on. Plus, that programmer will not be always available for questions, but ChatGPT will always be there. You'll see exactly what I mean by that when we work through the course. When you see me how I use ChatGPT for building programs and fixing programs and improving existing programs, etc. So you'll see that in practice, how exactly you can make the most of ChatGPT. And that's a short introduction to ChatGPT. So that was a general introduction. Now we're ready to make use of ChatGPT in the programming field. So thanks a lot, I'll see you in the next video. Hey, welcome to a new section of the course, and in this video I'll show you how I use ChatGPT to build any program. So the secret, as I already mentioned, is to think as you're talking to Jim. Jim is an experienced programmer, so you want Jim to understand you what you want. So let's take an example. Let's say we want to build a web app, a BMI calculator web app. BMI stands for body mass index, so it indicates if someone's weight is optimal or over the normal weight or under the normal weight. So this is a typical web app. Now, how do you ask Jim about creating this app? How do you give Jim the correct information he needs to build you this web app? Well, there are two ways to do that. So you either say, write me a BMI calculator web app using, what do you want to use, what programming language or what framework. So we can either say here using Python, but better would be to say using Flask. So Flask is a web framework for Python. So a branch of Python that deals with creating web apps. If you just say Python, then Jim, the ChatGPT, might ask you, oh, well, there are different frameworks, so perhaps you should be more explicit if you want a more straightforward answer. So that would be one way to query this and get the code. The other way is to answer a structured question, meaning that, oh, write me a web app where the user can enter their weight and height and get the BMI as an output using Flask. So you can describe what this app looks like and what it does. So it looks like something where the user can enter a weight and a height, and it does generate BMI as an output. And then you mention what you want to use to build that app, what programming language, or better, what framework, in this case Flask. So you would ask now, well, what's the best way to do it? The shorter way or the longer way? Well, the shorter way would be better, like write me a BMI web app. This is better when you just want the web app without any custom features. So if you want the standard BMI app, then this would be fine. So write me a BMI web app using Flask. So I'll press enter. And so ChatGPT will normally give you an explanation along with the code. Now, when there are multiple files that are needed to build that program, as is the case here, then the answer will look more like a tutorial, like in this case. So we have this code. Since this is wrapped in this black area, that means this is one single file. So you can go to that copy code link, go to your favorite IDE or text editor where you write your code. I'm using PyCharm, which is a great IDE to use, so I do suggest you to give PyCharm a try as well. So it's free, the community version, PyCharm community is free, and it's used for Python code. So I've created an empty project here, so I'll write the first file, main, paste the code there, then follow the tutorial, the answer of ChatGPT. So you also need to create a template file named index.html in a templates directory. So there should be a templates directory, and inside that there should be a index.html file. So delete those things, and you need to copy the HTML code in that file. And that's the code. Then the next thing you might want to do is to follow up on the conversation and ask ChatGPT to change something on that program. But you want to stay in the same chat, right? In this current chat. So let's take as an example, we want to change something from this program. So first of all, let's run this program and see what we might change, how it looks like. So I want to install Flask first. With pip install Flask, you can install the Flask library. So pip is a package manager in Python. It installs packages like Flask. So once the package is installed, then you want to run this main.py file. So on PyCharm, I can right click here and go to run main. And Flask apps should be accessed through a URL. The URL usually it's 127.0.0.1 colon the port number, which is 5000 by default. So that's the BMI calculator app. So it's very basic. That's what we asked. That's what we got. And let's see how it works. So the program expects the height in meters. So let's try 1.76 and the weight in kilograms. Let's try 68. Press on calculate, and we got this. Your BMI is 21.95. Now, if you want to improve something on this program, for example, this doesn't have styling, so it's only HTML, and it looks very basic. So let's go back to the program. And you can follow up with the next query, apply some styling to the web page. So always think like you're talking to a real human, to a programmer. So you can complain to that programmer. It looks very basic, like in the mid-90s. You know, the chatbot really understands this query, so it understands your intent. So you can always talk to that like it's a real human. Oh, sometimes we get this error, so I'll press on save and submit again. So there, and then submit again. And if it keeps having issues, then you want to reload the page and then go to this chat again, and you should see the conversation history, and you can create a new conversation. So for example, refresh. And let's rewrite the question. Press enter. And so now ChatGPT knows what was going on in the conversation before, so it will give you an answer based on the previous conversation. So you can apply styling to the HTML templates using CSS. Here's an example of how you can improve the look of the BMI calculator using CSS. So that is CSS code. Now, sometimes this will not give you a lot of details where you can put this CSS code. For example, it gives you the code, but it doesn't tell you where to put it. So you can ask a follow-up question for that. So let's wait for the answer to finish, and then we ask the next follow-up question. Where should we put this code, for example? So where should we place that code? So when you say that code, that means that which was in the previous answer. So it's talking about placing the CSS code within the head sections of the HTML. So I know that it's talking about this index.html file. But if you're not clear, if you are a beginner in web apps, in web development, for example, you can also try to get more details, right? I understand that, but in which file should that code be placed? So you can also stop the generation of that answer and press enter for the next question. So again, an issue, try to submit again. Now we get the answer. The CSS code should be placed in the same HTML template that contains the HTML code for your BMI calculator. For example, if you name the BMI, the file bmi.html, you can add the CSS code in the same file, right? So it's clear now, I suppose, that we're talking about putting that code in the HTML file. So I'll copy this and replace all this index.html file with that file, with that code. I'll save and then reload the page. So now we get an error, right? Which is part of programming. So you should ask your friend, well, this is what I've got with your code. I got an error on the web page, and then you paste the error. We'll look at how we can fix programs later on in more detail using ChatGPT. So it looks like there is a missing tag there, and then we get the correct code. So you should be able to see that it's again talking about the index.html file. You see, it's always starting with this HTML tags. So wait for the answer to be generated. So it's been generated, so I'll copy the code again and replace the previous code with the new code, right? Refresh the page, and now it looks much better. And of course, if you want to change something, you can follow up on the conversation, like, oh, use a dark gray color for the BMI calculator text, for the use quotes BMI calculator texts. And ChatGPT will give you the updated script. So it doesn't simply tell you what you should fix in your code. It does tell you that, but it also gives you the complete code so that you can just copy it and paste it and override the existing code in your program. So wait until all the code is generated by ChatGPT. You'll know the answer is completed when this shows, this button, regenerate response. So when that button shows up, then you know that you got a full answer and you're ready to write the next answer or regenerate the same response. So let me copy this code. Go to here, paste, save with Ctrl S, go to the web app, and yeah, there we go. That's the new color for the BMI calculator. So it looks pretty cool. You can try to use it, calculate, and there we get the answer. As a practice for you, I would suggest you to try to change the program by asking the question, rewrite the program by using the imperial system or imperial units. And ChatGPT will rewrite the program by using height in feet and weight in pounds. So that's something you can practice, and that was my introduction to how to build programs using ChatGPT. I hope this is helpful for you. We still have some more videos to show you some other activities you can do in the programming field and also some secrets of ChatGPT. So let's move on. Thanks a lot. Hey, welcome back. In this video we'll look at another example, a more complex app which we can build using ChatGPT. This time we want to create an app which reads data from a CSV file and it produces a plot based on the data on that CSV file. So I want to show you the correct way how to explain ChatGPT a more complex program like this. So first of all, as a programmer talking to another programmer, so the other programmer is ChatGPT, you want to know the programming language you want the code to be in and the libraries for that language. But if you don't know the libraries, then you can start the conversation by asking what is the best GUI library. So we want to create a desktop GUI program, right? What is the best desktop GUI library for Python for creating a data visualization graph with other widgets on the GUI? And so there you get a very, very good answer that gives you an introduction to what tools you can use to build this particular program. So the keywords here are matplotlib as the data visualization library and either tkinter, wx, python or pyqt to build the GUI itself. So the buttons and text boxes. So I'll choose matplotlib and pyqt. So then the next question might be to ask ChatGPT to write the code for you. But before that, in this case, we do have some data. We need a data set, right? A CSV file. So when you write a program, even when you write it by yourself, you first want to know how the data look like. So you want to have a sample file, and then you build your program based on the structure of those data. So let's ask ChatGPT first to create some CSV data containing two columns, a date column and a temperature column. create some random daily temperature data. Even if you have some typos, don't worry, ChatGPT will understand you. And yeah, that should do it. So submit. And there we go. So that's the CSV file, which you can copy in here. So wait for it to finish first. If you want more data, you can just write a query, oh, I want like 20 rows, and it will regenerate that CSV file for you. So I'll copy the code and go to my IDE, and for each program you want a separate project. So on PyCharm I've created a new project here, so I can write a new file. So go to File, type a name for the file, data.csv, press enter, and there you can just paste those data, and there you have a CSV file. So now the next question is to create the GUI, the program. Write an app using pyqt and matplotlib. You don't need to mention Python because these are Python libraries, so ChatGPT knows you're using Python. Where the user can. So you want to think as the user when you ask queries. So you want to describe the program from the user's perspective, what the user can do in this program, which ChatGPT has to write. So where the user can, select a date range, press a button and get a graph of temperature for the selected dates. Get a graph of temperature. Where do you want to get it? On the GUI for the selected dates, because you want to specify, perhaps you wanted just a file to be generated, a JPG file or so on, but you want the graph to be plotted on the GUI itself. The data should be taken from a CSV file which has a date and a temperature column. So that is the query. I do suggest you to read the query again so you are sure that you are asking all the requirements for the program, and yeah, press enter. As we're waiting for the answer to be generated, I would like to point out that it's important to keep all the chats separated, as I've mentioned before. So the previous app was in this chat, now this app was in a separate chat. So that will make the answers more efficient, more accurate. You'll get more accurate answers and you keep your chats organized. And so my code was generated, so I'll copy it, go to PyCharm and try to run it. So create a main.py file. This is a separate project, as I told you, and paste the code there. You may need to install certain libraries, so you'll find those libraries usually here on top. Or you can ask ChatGPT, what libraries do I need to install? Just straightforward. You don't have to say what libraries do I need to install to run that program. So the chatbot knows what you mean. So it gives you the command here. You can just copy it and run it in the terminal. So these are commands which interact with the operating system. So you should run installation commands on the terminal. Now, just a note, PyQt5 doesn't work on Python 3.10 on Mac M1 processors. So you may need to install Python 3.7 if you are on a Mac M1 processor or M2. So once these are installed, you'll see this line here and you should be able to run this program. So right click, go to run. If you have an error, you can ask ChatGPT again about that error. So for example, I've got this file not found error. Now I know what this means, so no such file or directory temperatures.csv. So if you ask ChatGPT for that, it will tell you for sure what the error is. So it explains you what the issue might be. So to resolve the issue, make sure that the file temperatures.csv exists in the same directory as the program specifies in the read CSV function here. So it knows what you're talking about, and yeah, that's the idea. So you should go to the read CSV file. So temperatures should reflect that. So you can just write here data.csv, or I would suggest not to change the code, but to change the file itself. This is better because you have this history here in ChatGPT where your CSV file is named temperature.csv. So it's better to keep that code without changing it. So that's one important tip I'd like to give you. When you are developing a program, try to be consistent with the code that ChatGPT was generating for you. So I'll rename this, go to refactor, rename temperatures.csv, temperatures, refactor, and run again. And that's the program. So there we have the date, inputs, and the plot button. Let's try to press plot. So these are the dates from this date to that date. Let's see what our temperature ranges from 1st of January in my case to 10th of January. So let's put the month 01, 01 for the day. Again, the first one is the month, so let's put 01 for the month and 08 for the day. Press on plot. Right, so now you might get errors, but you have ChatGPT to ask for errors. So explain what you did and what you got as an error. I ran your program but got this error. A colon, shift enter, paste the error in the next line and press enter to submit your query to ChatGPT. And so ChatGPT tries to explain you what the problem is, and it also gives you the code you need to enter in your program, to type in your program, to update the program. Now, you can either search manually where you can put this code, or you can ask the chatbot, can you update the app with that change? And ChatGPT will give you the updated code with that patch implemented. So as you can see, using ChatGPT to build an app is an iterative process, so it's not like one question and one answer, but you have to keep communicating with ChatGPT like you do with a software developer, with a human. So humans can make errors, ChatGPT can also, but what's important is that ChatGPT can follow up with an excellent manner so that it can fix and update your programs. So it understands you and it gives you the updated code. So let's wait for the generation of the updated code and we give it another try on PyCharm. Now sometimes ChatGPT will lag, so it's currently in its early days. So in that case, now it stopped generating code. So in that case, you can go to your query, your last query, click that button and save and submit to submit the query again. So the code is generated, so I'll copy it and update the existing main.py file. So overwrite, run again. Now your code may be a bit different. What ChatGPT is generating for you will be slightly different from me. So my point here is to show you the way to use ChatGPT to build programs more than it is to show you these actual programs that we're building or its code. Yeah, let's try again. 01 for month, 01 for day, 23 for the year, and 1 for the month again, 8 for the day, 23 for the year. Show graph, there we go. So that's a graph of temperature. So not bad. As you can see, the power of ChatGPT in being able to follow up with you is incredible. It does make mistakes sometimes, as you saw, it produced some faulty code, but what's important is that it is able to actually update the code and understand the errors, and that gives you superpowers as a programmer. So if you're curious, I'm uploading this code in the lecture resources if you like to get my code and compare it with yours, but that's not the idea. As I mentioned already, the idea is to teach you how to use ChatGPT. So thanks for following. We still have some more lectures to do so that you have a very solid understanding of how to use ChatGPT in programming. So thanks, I'll see you in the next videos. As we move on to the AI era, a lot of previous services will sadly go out of business as they make room for the new AI tools such as ChatGPT. Now, in the field of programming, the most prominent service has been the Stack Overflow forum, and I think Stack Overflow might cease to exist in the near future. Launched in 2008, Stack Overflow has been a phenomenal site, an invaluable resource of questions and answers on programming issues, given as free contribution from a vast community of programmers who have helped each other through over the years. Everyone could ask a question and answer questions on Stack Overflow, and you can still do that, and I hope Stack Overflow will continue to be here. I really hope so. However, as much as I love this site, I think Stack Overflow will not be as popular as before. That is sad on one hand, but it's also exciting on the other, because it opens a new AI era in the field of programming, specifically as we're talking now in the field of fixing computer programs. So people will not be using Stack Overflow anymore, or at least as much as they used before, because now we have ChatGPT, and you'll see how easy it is to fix computer programs with ChatGPT. So thank you, Stack Overflow, for your immense contribution, really. And let's go ChatGPT. I'll talk to you in the next video. Hey, welcome back. In this video, I'll show you how to fix programs with ChatGPT. In other words, debugging programs from errors with ChatGPT. So let's take this example. You can find this example attached in the lecture resources. So this program has an issue and it needs to be fixed. The issue is that when I run the program, I'm supposed to enter the A value. So this program is trying to calculate the area of a rectangle. So you give the length of one side, let's say 2, the length of the other side of the rectangle, and we should see the area printed out. So we got A from the user, we got B from the user, and then we try to call that function which calculates the area but we get an error in line 2, right? Line 2, which is here. It says you cannot multiply sequence by non-int of type str. Now, if you are an experienced programmer, you will be able to tell what the problem is here. But sometimes, even the experienced programmer, they need a lot of time to troubleshoot something. And here is where ChatGPT comes in. So in very short time, you can fix an error with ChatGPT. So I'll show you two methods. In this video, I'll show you the first method, how to query ChatGPT to fix your programs. In the next video, I'll show you a more powerful method than this one. So you should learn both methods, even though most of the time you'll use the second method in the next video. So this is the first method. This is a traditional way of asking a question to another programmer. So that would be, whenever you ask questions to other programmers, you copy the code. So let's say you are in Stack Overflow, you want to ask a question to other programmers. So the standard format of programming questions is you mention the expected output, like I'm trying to get the rectangle area, but I get an error instead. The code is this. So you mention the expected output, which is the rectangle area. You mention the actual output, which is an error. So the program produces an error, that's the actual output. And then you mention the code, which is this one, and the error message, a column, Shift Enter, and then here you want to copy paste the error. It doesn't matter if you copy the entire error or just the last one or two lines, so ChatGPT will always find it, don't worry. So press enter. So that's a standard programming question, that's the format. So ChatGPT is telling you to convert the inputs to numbers. So that's the correct code. According to ChatGPT, you copy that code and yeah, you just paste it, and that should fix the issue. So 1, 4, and you get 4. 1 times 4, it's 4. Now you might ask, and you may be worried of ChatGPT actually taking over the job of programmers, because you might say, oh, ChatGPT can build programs, can fix programs. So what is the programmer doing? Well, you still need a programmer, you still need the human. For example, in this case, this program seems to work, right? 1, 4, but if you enter like 1.5, then you're gonna get an error again. So as a human programmer, I was able to see that this doesn't sound right to have an int here, because this should be converted into a decimal point number, so a float, not an int. But ChatGPT doesn't know that. So there's still a need of programmers. So ChatGPT makes your job easier, but it doesn't take away your job. So that's another programmer. Again, you should actively work with ChatGPT until you get the correct code for your program. So in this case, you can just follow up. You don't need to paste the code, so you can just follow up with another question. Oh, I got this error when I entered 1.5 for the A input. So that's the error. And as expected, ChatGPT is telling you to use a float instead of an int. So that should fix finally the error. So just copy the code and update with the new code. This time the program should be fixed. So there we go. If you like, you can continue querying ChatGPT to give you, for example, 2 decimal points after the comma for the output and so on. So that was one method to query ChatGPT using a standard format of programming questions. So expected output, actual output, the code, and the error message. In the next video, I'll show you a shorter way how to fix programs with ChatGPT, and that is also a more powerful way, and I'll explain you why. I'll see you in the next video. You know, historically, it has been frustrating to answer questions made from beginners on forums such as Stack Overflow. Beginners who didn't follow the correct format for programming questions, so giving the expected output, the actual output, the code, and the error message. Usually, beginners would ask questions like this. So let me try a new chat here. So they would say, oh, this code is not working. What might be the problem? And they give the code, so that's logical to give the code, otherwise people would not know it. But other than that, they wouldn't actually mention what they expect from that code and what the actual output was. So that was insufficient information for people who wanted to help you. But nowadays, that actually is an advantage to ask simple queries to ChatGPT when it comes to programming issues. So let's try this together. Let's get this code. I'll delete the float functions so that we simulate a problem here, an issue. So the issue here is that if you enter 1 and 4, you're gonna get this error because it's trying to multiply this A string with this B strings, because input gives out a string, not a number. So now we go to ChatGPT. So this code is not working. You just paste the code there without saying any other thing. So you don't want to influence the chatbot. Just let it try to find out itself. And it does a great job. You'll see. So there you go. Input returns a string, not a number. When you try to multiply 2 strings, it concatenates them instead of performing mathematical multiplication. So there we go, and we'll get the correct code. So that's the same code that we got previously. So I'm in a new chat. The previous chat was that. So when we asked the question using the standard format of programming questions, we got the same output. So that is the other way to query ChatGPT to fix programs. So the long way is not necessary. Let's try another quick example. Please find attached the HTML file and we'll copy this code. So this has a typo, so SCR should be SRC, not SCR. And this is something that a programmer might have trouble finding because it's something small and the errors might not be very useful. But ChatGPT will do a great job here as well. I'll explain why. So again, this code is not working. What might be the problem? And in the next line, you paste the code. And the AI will tell you the exact issue. So you have a typo in the AIMG tag. The attribute SCR should be SRC, and then it gives you the correct code. So SRC. So you see that you don't need to give extra information about the issue to ChatGPT because ChatGPT does have an immense database to compare the code with, and it reads your code in the fraction of a second. So a programmer would need to go through the code carefully, try to detect the line where the error occurred, But ChatGPT does it instantly, and it compares the code with a huge database of correct code and then tries to connect the dots and gives you the best possible answer. And that's very powerful to have. So I hope this makes sense. Make use of this and build better programs. Thanks a lot. I'll talk to you in the next videos. See you. Hey, welcome to a new section. So far we've seen how to build programs and how to fix programs with the help of ChatGPT. Another important responsibility of a developer, apart from building and fixing programs, is to improve existing programs, which consists of adding new features to an existing program, making the code more elegant, and refactoring the code. So in this section we're going to see how you can do all these tasks using ChatGPT. So let's start with the first one. Let's add a new feature to this program. You can find the code attached in the lecture resources. So you'll find the main.py file and the temperatures.csv file. So this is the code I'll use, and this code produces this output. So if I enter, for example, 0101 23, 0105 23, so these are the dates, I get this graph when I press on show graph. Now we want to add a new feature here. I want to give the users the option to see a bar graph. So this is a line graph here. We also want to have users choose to see the temperature printed as a bar graph. Let's do that. So copy the code, go to ChatGPT, and you want to start by writing, let's call this a title of your query, right? I want to add a new feature to the following program. So you want to let ChatGPT know what you're about to do, and then you give the details. I want to let users select whether they want to see a line graph or a bar graph. Here is the code. And in the next line, you paste the code. That's how you ask ChatGPT to add a new feature. So you'll get an answer where it explains what ChatGPT is about to do with the code, and then it gives you the code. So let's wait for the complete code and then try it out. So once ChatGPT will complete the code, and you'll know that when you see this regenerate response button displayed here. But however, you should be careful here, because sometimes with long answers there's limitations. So ChatGPT will not give you the complete code, so you should be careful to see what you get actually. So in this case I can tell that this is not complete code. Well, so we simply have the window class with the init method, but not the complete code. What can we do in these cases? So when working with long code, what can we do? The solution here is to modify your query. So in my case it was, I want to add a new feature to the following program, and here is the code. So we want to modify that, and that allows you to type in the text box again to modify your answer. So you want to say that here's the code, give me only the first half of the code. And this is important, use code highlighting. So this makes sure that ChatGPT will give you like the proper syntax highlighting, so you can copy and paste the code properly. And then you want to scroll down until you find the Save as Submit button, press that button. And now you should get only the first half of the code, which means this can bypass the word count limitations of ChatGPT. Perhaps in the future this will be fixed and you won't have to ask for the half of the code, but this is a trick that it's good to know. So let's wait for the generation of the first half of the code. Right, we got the response, so it's up to here, and we want to copy that. Go to PyCharm, create a new file to place the code, main2, paste that, and then we go back to chatbot, and you say now give me the second half of the code and use code highlighting. Press enter. And ChatGPT will give you the second half. So that's a good trick. So there we go, that's the second half. Let's copy it. Go to PyCharm, paste. Now you want to be careful with the indentation here. So let me undo and show you again how I did it. So my cursor here is on the very upper level of indentation. So in the very beginning of the line, because this was already indented, you see the first function is indented. So you want to paste there. And yeah, let's try this code now. There we go, 010123, 0108, so 8th of January, 23. Let's try the line graph first. There we go, the bar graph. That's a bar graph as well, so it's working fine. And we can add a new feature, which is quite a tricky feature to add, but ChatGPT does a great job. So that was a video on how to add new features to an existing program, and this was about adding a new feature to a one-file program. So this here has only one file, right? One main.py file, and we had to split it in two, but there are programs which have multiple files, right? Python programs where you have a main.py file, a processing.py file, where the files import each other. And so you also want to know how to improve, so how to add features to those programs that have multiple files to ChatGPT. So I'll show that to you in the next video. See you there. Hello again. Previously you saw how to add a new feature to an existing program, a program which had only one file. Sometimes though, your programs will have multiple files, as is the case with the Flask BMI application, which we built previously in the course. So we want to add a feature to this application using ChatGPT, and this application has two files, a main.py file where the Python code is, and an index.html file where the HTML code resides. So we want to communicate to ChatGPT both these files somehow. So let's see how we can do that. So previously we started our query by saying, I want to add a new feature to the following program. So that was the case with the data visualization GUI. But now we want to start by introducing our files one by one to ChatGPT. So let's say I have a BMI app built with Flask. Here is my main.py file. And then you paste the code of your main.py file. So why am I doing this? Why am I providing the code step by step? Well, because there is a certain limitation in the number of words you can submit in a single query. So perhaps in this case, it would be enough to submit both files in one single query, right? That could work. But with longer programs where you have multiple files, you want to follow the method I'm following now. So introduce the files one by one. And so initially, ChatGPT will give you a description of the code you have. Paste it here. So that's not something we need, but we can wait for ChatGPT to finish the answer. So it is simply explaining what the code does. Now we want to introduce, and here is my templates. slash index.html file served by the main.py file. So then you copy and paste that file. See that I mentioned the complete path of the file. So index.html is inside the templates folder. That's why I mentioned the complete relative path to the project. And then paste the HTML code, press enter. ChatGPT will again try to explain what that code does, and then it's time to ask about the new feature. So the new feature is going to be this. Currently the program gives the BMI like this. Now the new feature is going to be some emojis next to this number, and will show a certain emoji if the BMI is in the normal BMI range, and some other emojis if it's outside of the normal range, so some conditional there. So let's go back to ChatGPT and ask it to give us this new feature. And let's write the query for that. So I want to add a new feature to that program. So with that, you're specifying that you're talking about the codes you have been discussing in this chat. Then give the details about your new feature. So I want to display a positive emoji next to the BMI result when the BMI is in the normal range, and a negative emoji when the BMI is outside of the normal range. So that's it. Press enter and wait for the updated code. And there we got an answer from ChatGPT. So it's telling us what we need to change. Actually, this is not the complete code. So as a programmer, you should be careful with the output of ChatGPT. You should be able to understand what's going on. So for example, ChatGPT didn't give us the entire code, only those lines we need to update, which is the lines inside these if tags, right? So you can either say here, oh, give me the complete code to get the complete code, or I would prefer that I just copy these, only these lines, and go to my HTML code. And so these are what I need to replace. If BMI and if, and yeah, remove these blank lines, this as well, so these two as well. Yeah, that's the code. So let's reload the app and see if we've got the desired results. So there we go. Let's enter a new height, 1.8, 120 for the weight, calculate. Yeah, we get this BMI and an unsatisfied smiley. So the app seems to be working fine. And that's how you use ChatGPT to add features to multiple file programs. So first you present both files as we did here, one by one in two separate queries, and then you ask ChatGPT to update your app. Thanks for following. I'll see you in the next videos. Hey, welcome to a new lecture on how to make your code more elegant. So, what is elegant code anyway? And you'll see from ChatGPT that elegant code has to fulfill three conditions basically. It has to be concise, and it has to be readable, and it has to be easy to understand. So that means if you look at some code, as a programmer, you should be able to read that code easily and understand it. And that should be implemented in as shorter code as possible. So that means usually as a programmer, you write programs first, and then you go back to that program and try to improve it by making it more elegant. So to shorten it, to make sure it's readable, to make sure it's understandable. Now we can do all these by using ChatGPT. So let's try out with this code. So this is some code that has not been reviewed, so it was written. It does the work, it works fine. So basically this code asks the user to enter a new password, like 456 for example. You press enter and it gives you the output if that password is weak or strong. So if you run again and you enter like a password with a mix of letters and small cases and symbols, you're gonna get a strong password. So all that code analyzes the user passwords. So it first checks if the length is greater than 8. It stores true to this dictionary or false if it's not greater than 8. Then it checks if there are digits. So that's another condition for a strong password. Then it checks if there are uppercase letters. So digits, length, and uppercase letters are 3 conditions to make a strong password. So we store all those results in the dictionary and then we check if all the conditions have been satisfied. So length of passwords, the existence of digits, and the existence of uppercase letters. And we print out strong, otherwise we print out weak. Now let's copy this code and see if we can make it more elegant with ChatGPT. Make this code more elegant. As simple as that. In the next line, you paste the code. And that's the code. So that's much, much shorter than this version here. So this is 30 lines. This is, let's see. So I'll copy it. Create a new file. More elegant. Paste the code here. I'll split this to the right and the original file here to the left. So it's half of this code. So it's shorter, it's more concise, right? That's one of the conditions of elegant code. Now let's try to read it, if it's readable and if it's understandable. So it asks for the passwords. It creates a dictionary of these 3 keys, 1, 2, and 3. I think so far it's quite readable because you see immediately what keys you have in the result dictionary. In this other code, it was not easy to see what the dictionary is, right? Because the dictionary is being constructed dynamically. So as a programmer, for you, it's easier to read this code. So you see the structure of the dictionary right here on the spot. And then you see the values of each key, so you understand what this value will consist of. So it's like a conditional if length of the password is greater than 8. So this will be either true or false. This as well, either true or false if any of the characters is a digit. So we use the any function here. Same goes for uppercase. And then you check if all, so that's the same code as here, more or less. So I think ChatGPT did a great job to make this code not elegant, but much more elegant. So that's the power of ChatGPT. Thanks for following, I'll see you in the next video. In the previous video, you learned how to make code more elegant with ChatGPT. In this video, you'll learn how to refactor code. So let's open a new chat. What is refactoring in programming? So that's the description that ChatGPT gave me about refactoring. So refactoring is similar to making the code elegant in that both of them do not change the functionality of the code. So the output should be the same after you make the code more elegant or after you refactor it. But refactoring is more concerned about making the code more maintainable for the future, more scalable. Which means, for example, let's take this code again. So the original code, you can find this attached again. So this is the code that checks for the password. It does have these conditional blocks. So this code here doesn't have any functions. So if you were to refactor this, you'd probably create a function and put some of that code in that function, or maybe two functions. So that would make the code more organized. So by having the code inside functions or even classes, you're making the code easier to maintain for the future. So let me copy this code and go to ChatGPT, refactor this code, paste the code there, and let's see how ChatGPT will refactor it. There might be different refactorings, so depending on what you want to achieve, so different opinions. This is not exact science, but this is one version that ChatGPT is giving us. So let's copy that code. Let's go here and paste it somewhere. Refactored. So that's the code we got. Let's split it to the right. That's the original code and that's the new code. So as you can see, ChatGPT make the code shorter, so it does also make it more elegant when you refactor it. So making the code more elegant is also part of refactoring, because making the code more elegant means making it more readable. And refactoring is also concerned about readability. Plus, as I mentioned, it does add functions, so it does put code inside functions. You can also ask more explicit questions, such as refactor that code using classes. So if you want to be explicit what style of refactoring you want to apply. So in this case, ChatGPT will create a class with an init method, right, and then store that dictionary as an attribute of that class. And then you'll have this method define a strong, and so on. You can also try to follow up with the conversation. So if you want a different style of refactoring, you can do that. For example, I would like that the class have a method to check the length, a method to check the digits, and a method to check the uppercase letters. So in this case, I want to tell ChatGPT what refactoring style to apply exactly. So I want the class to be structured in a certain way. So I asked for 3 methods here. So there we go. We've got 3 methods. And as you can see now, the dictionary is still an attribute, so result is that, but the values of the dictionary, so the value of length is equal to the value of the check length method, which is this method here. Same goes for the other methods. So there we go. So refactoring can result in longer code, right? It's not necessarily shorter code. That's part of the other process of making the code more elegant. So refactoring is more about having code that is more extendable. So in the future, it's easier for you when you have a class to extend the code. So that's about how to use ChatGPT to refactor code. Thanks a lot. I'll see you in the next videos. When you create a program and then you run it and then you test it as a user, you see if it works, you enter some input, you get some output. So you get a general idea if the program is working or not, so that if it's not working, you can fix something in the program. But testing the program manually is not enough to be able to tell with high accuracy if that program will pass all scenarios. So in that case, we use testing in programming. So in this video, I want to show you how you can test your programs with the help of ChatGPT. So you can create automatic test cases with ChatGPT. So let's take as an example this program here. This asks the user to enter feet and inches. So let's imagine this was a program somewhere at an amusement park where kids go and they try to enter this slide, but there is a limit where the kid has to be a certain height to be able to enter that slide, to use that slide. So this program is asking for the height in feet and inches. So let's enter 3 space 4. So that's what the user is expected to enter. Press enter and you get kid can use the slide because it's higher than the limit here. So it seems like the program is working fine, but to be able to tell for sure, you need to write a test case. So let's ask ChatGPT to write a test case for this app. So I'm copying this code, go to ChatGPT, and you say, write a test case for the code below using unit test. Unit test is the library for Python to test programs. I'd also suggest to say write the test in a separate file. And then here goes the code we want to test. So press enter and ChatGPT now should create a test file. It imports the unit test library here, and then it imports the file which contains the code. So code to tests is supposed to be the file which contains the code of our app which we want to test. So you might want to tweak something here, right? In some cases, ChatGPT will not provide the import here. So in that case, you have to write it manually. Let me show you. So copy the code, go to your IDE where your program is located, the program you want to test. So in this case is this code here. And in the same directory with that program, you want to create a new file, a Python file called test.py, and you paste the code you got from ChatGPT in this file. And then you want to make sure that you are importing that program. So that is height.py. That means I'll do from height import convert. Convert is the name of the function that is doing the conversion, the calculations here, right? So now you go to test and then you run this test.py file. And here you have to enter some feet and inches because we have this input function there. So do whatever the program here tells you. And if you get OK, that means this program is probably fine, right? So this file used 3 different cases. So it provided some values, 5, 4, 6, 8, so feet and inches. So the same values that we used to enter in the command line, but this is trying different values, so different test scenarios. And if you want more accuracy, then you might want to ask ChatGPT to rewrite that test case with more cases. Or rewrite that test with more cases, basically. And ChatGPT will try to add more scenarios. So here we've got 3. Now we're gonna get some more. There we got 3. So here's one more. another, and so on. So that's an improvement over the previous test with more cases. And you can of course copy this and try it out again and see if you get okay. If there's an issue, you'd get an error instead of getting okay here. So if your program doesn't pass the tests, you will get an error. And that means you should read that error and then you should go to the program and try to see what the problem was. So what is the test case that's where the program is failing, and try to understand why that value is failing in the program. So that's about how to use ChatGPT to write tests to test your programs. I hope this helps. Thanks a lot. Hey, welcome to a new section on using ChatGPT in the field of programming. We're going to be looking at some more benefits of ChatGPT on how to make better programs and be more efficient. Specifically, we're going to see how to write documentation for a program. Now, this will consist of two parts. First, we're going to get this script and ask ChatGPT to add commenting to this script. So, inline comments. And then we're going to produce documentation also, which can be posted on websites, right? When you have a program, you also want to write documentation, so a manual on how people can use your program. So we'll do these two things. First, you can find this program attached in the lecture resources. So I'll copy this, go to ChatGPT and say, add commenting to this program. So if you want in script comments, you to write the query like this, add commenting to this program. And if you want a documentation page, then the query should be something different. And there we go. So that's how you can comment your code with ChatGPT. So what ChatGPT is doing here is adding these lines. So in Python, these are comments. These are not affecting the functionality of the program. So these are just to describe what's going on in the code. So normally we write these comments ourselves as programmers, but ChatGPT might do a better job, especially when you are not so keen in writing documentations. So some programmers, they are good in writing code, but when it comes to documentation, they don't do a great job. So that's a very good use of ChatGPT. So if you get this program and you execute it, you'll get the same output. So that's about writing comments inside the code. But if you want to publish this code on a website, then you'd want to write some documentation. So in that case, you can say, write me a documentation page for that program. So in this case, ChatGPT might even use like a heading and other headings for each paragraph. So that's quite impressive. This would be especially useful if you are writing like libraries, modules, and you want others to know how to use them. And this is how you do it. So you just ask for documentation and comments when it comes to comments inside the script. Yep, that's about using ChatGPT to document your code. Thanks a lot. See you later. Hey, we're going to continue with one more video here on how to use ChatGPT to learn a new programming language. This is especially the case when you are familiar with a programming language already and you want to learn another, so you know how to ask queries to ChatGPT. So the first query would be, for example, let's say we want to learn Java. And you'd say, create me a curriculum on learning Java. And you want to keep everything in one chat as usual. So first I'm asking ChatGPT to give me a curriculum with the main items to be learned. And then in the next line, you want to query about the first point here, introduction to Java and its history. So you can say, tell me more about the first item of the curriculum, right? You learn about that, then you ask for the second item and so on. So you can ask, you can go deeper and deeper into how many questions you asked. So you can ask for code examples. So ChatGPT could be like your personal tutor for learning something. So there it goes, the curriculum, it's already 11 points. And there we have a final project. So then in the final project, you can ask for ideas. Like, give me some ideas on Java projects, and then you pick one of those ideas, you ask questions again, and so on. I'm sure that with the knowledge you have so far with ChatGPT, I'm sure that you can dig deeper into this on your own. So that was a quick tip on how to use ChatGPT to learn new programming languages. Some more tips in the next video. See you. Did you know that you can also use ChatGPT to help you during the application process for jobs? Because applying for multiple jobs becomes a daunting process, having to write cover letters for everything. So let's suppose that you were looking for Python Flask jobs on monster.com. So you find one listing and you want to first make sure that this job is for you, so without wasting the time of the employers. So you really want to make sure that you really want this job and you can do it. And if you're lazy, then writing a cover letter, you can just copy the description of the job and just ask ChatGPT to write a customized cover letter for this job description. And then you paste the job description there. And there you'd get a nicely written letter . So that's the letter ChatGPT wrote. So if you want to follow up, you can say, oh, write that a bit longer or a bit shorter, and ChatGPT will rewrite it. Or you can also set the tone of the letter. So rewrite that with a more cheeky tone. That could be something you might ask if you would like to do that. So there we go. I hope this letter finds you in a cheerful mood. So that's something that could stand you out from the other applicants. Of course, you always want to double check what's being written here. So that's how you can use ChatGPT to find jobs. Thanks a lot for following this, and I'll see you in the next videos. See you. Hey, welcome to a bonus video. I'll show you how to use the ChatGPT API in this video. The ChatGPT API allows you to create programs which allow your users to use ChatGPT through your program. Perhaps you want to make a chatbot which gives the same answers as ChatGPT, Or you may want to integrate it with a psychotherapy app where users can ask for advice. So the possibilities are endless. Let me show you how to access the ChatGPT API. So you want to go to openai.com and then go to the API section here. Then you want to sign up for an account and log in after that. And then you should see this page, and then you want to go to personal and then go to view APIs. There you'll see a list of existing APIs if you have any. Otherwise, you want to create a new secret API. So copy that, that's your API, put it somewhere for now. And then you want to ask ChatGPT perhaps how to use the API in Python. So we'll use Python as the programming language. So you can just say, give me an example of the usage of the ChatGPT API in Python. And that's exactly what we wanted. That's a minimal example. So I'll copy that, go to PyCharm and paste it somewhere. So you want to install the OpenAI library first. So go to your terminal and do pip install, execute that, and that will install the library. And then in here, openapi.api_key, you want to paste your API key. So paste it there. And then we have this function. So in here, we are accessing the completion class of the API library. And then we access the create method of the completion class. And create method is the method which will return the response of the chatbot. So this create method gets a series of arguments. This here can be improved to 3 actually. This is a better model. This is the algorithm that returns those responses. Now, ChatGPT itself, the one we use from the chat.openai.com website, uses an even more advanced model than this, which has also reinforcement learning, which makes it better than this version here. Anyway, the two models are very similar still. So there goes the prompt. So that's your question, the user question in the prompt. And then we have like how many words should the question in total have. So the user prompt. So that's 1024 for now. You can go up to 4000. That's the number of iterations. Actually, these two you don't really need. You can remove them. That's an important argument. That's the temperature. You can set a value from 0 to 1, and 0 means the answers that ChatGPT gives you are more accurate but less diverse, and 1 means there's more diversity, more creativity, but a bit less of accuracy. So 0.5 is like a good midpoint. So there we go. Then we extract. From that, we extract the actual answer. So that's like a specific object which we need to extract. So text will extract the actual string that the chatbot is giving to us, and we return that string. So that function returns the answer of ChatGPT. And then in these lines here, we are simply calling this function, right? So that's a sample prompt, what is the meaning of life, and that is being sent to the input prompt, and that is being used as the input for this getResponse function, right? And then we print out the call of this function. So if I run this now, we should get the meaning of life. So the meaning of life is subjective. That's the answer of ChatGPT. So that's how you access the API through Python. So you can expand this program. You can make this a graphical user interface, a web app, whatever you like. That's how you get an answer from the chatbot. So I hope you find this useful, and thanks a lot for following this course. Good luck with Python and ChatGPT. See you.